Greetings and welcome to another week on the channel. Hope everyone had a good weekend. So we're going to start off this week with a little bit of a tribute to Gary Wright from Spooky Tooth, who sadly passed away in August of this year. So although Spooky Tooth were already requested, I just bumped them up the list, had a listen, and here we go. Spooky Tooth, they're an English rock band formed up north in Carlisle on the borders. They were around from about 1967 to 1974, and then they reformed several times in their later years. So they have released 8 albums in their career. There's only one that I'm not very keen on because it was a little bit different. That sounds right. I've had a few members through the band, of course. We'll go through them as we look through the albums. So, coming in at number 8, we have an album from 1969 called Ceremony. And it was a collaboration with French experimental composer Pierre Henry, and this was their 3rd album. So on here you've got Pierre Henry, music, concrete and electronics, and Spooky Tooth were at the time Mike Harrison on vocals and keyboards, Luther Grosvenor on guitars, Gary Wright on vocals, electronic organs and keyboards, Andy Lee on the bass, and Mike Kelly on the drums. First track on here is called Have Mercy. Some really nice guitar work on this. Some weird, strange sound effects. Probably one of the better tracks on this album. Then we get a thing called Jubilation. Now, to me, this is just mind-boggling. It doesn't make any sense at all. I know there's experimental music, and then there's experimental music. I really didn't get on with this one. Then there's Confession. Now, this is more like it. Some great drumming here from Mike. The vocals sound good. It's a pretty good track. And we flip it over to side 2. Then we get Prayer. Now this one isn't too bad. We've got some lovely rich organ here, Hammond style, and then it just goes off into some tangent of mystique and thing. The last 5 minutes is just, yeah, cut it. We don't need it. Ruin the record. Offering. Again, it's very confusing. The sound effects just don't fit in with this song at all. I really couldn't get a grip of that. Then we have Hosanna. This is more like it. I can get on with this one. It's sort of Spooky Tooth style, but it's still quite a bit weird. Yeah, definitely a mixed bag here. There's some weird stuff on here. Two of the tracks are totally out there, but there is backed up by a couple of strong tracks on this one. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 5 out of 10. Okay, then coming in at number 7, we have the 7th and final album that was released in 1999. It's called Cross Purpose. First album in 25 years. So the band that come out to perform this one is Mike Harrison on vocals and keyboards, Luther Grosvenor on the guitars, we've got Greg Ridley on bass, Mike Kelly on drums. Additional musicians, we've got 2 keyboard players, we've got Dave Moore and Matthias Batzel, and on harmonica we have Mark Feltnam. The first track is probably a track that was written by Gary Wright himself before he left the band. and it's called That Was Only Yesterday. It is the best track on here. The drumming's pretty good. It's one of them tracks that's probably was lying around and they just brought it out. Yeah, it's a pretty good track. I like that one. Then we have Tears Behind My Mind, a solid track. There's just nothing wrong with it. It's got a lovely psychedelic sound on it. That's pretty good. Then we have a track called Throw Me a Line. Got a nice medley. Yeah, it's alright. Then we got It's You Girl, and in brackets, Message to Deborah. It's a little bit different, little pleasant tune. Wouldn't go overboard on it though. Love Is Real, really good. Some nice guitar work here from Luther. I quite like that. Sunshine, that's alright. How, I like the beginning of this, but the rest of it's a little bit groggy. It sort of falls apart. Send Me Some Lovin', a nice little number. Then I Can't Believe, which is quite an old song. I'm not quite sure the origins of it, but I do know the song, and it's quite a good version of it. Kiss It Better, it's okay. That was the last track. It's not a bad album. Yeah, it's one that I don't listen to much, I'll say that, but it's still got some good songs on it, so I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 7 out of 10, because it's one of them albums that it does sort of, the more you play it, you go, oh yeah, this is alright. I hadn't played it for ages, and I thought, oh, it's not too bad. Okay then, coming in at number 6, go back to 1973 now, for the You Broke My Heart, So I Busted Your Jaw album. Interesting, isn't it? This was the first album to be released after the band reformed following their 70 breakup. Luther Grosvenor didn't join the band because he went off and went with Mott the Hoople. So Luther was replaced by the one and only Mick Jones, who of course went on to form Foreigner after Spooky Tooth. So this is Mike Harrison on lead vocals, piano and harmonica, Mick Jones on guitars and backing vocals, Gary Wright on all things organ and vocals, Chris Stewart on the bass, Val Burke does some bass and backing vocals, and Bryson Graham plays the drums. First track on this one is called Cotton Growing Man. I really love this. It's got some really nice organ here from Gary. Great vocal here as well. Fantastic little track. Old When I Was Born. Some nice guitar here from Mick. I do like his style of guitar playing. There's another very good vocal from Mike Harris. And this time around, it's just one of them tracks, when you put it on, you know it's Spooky Tooth. It's got a great bass line. I'm not quite sure if it's Chris or Val, but it is pretty awesome bass line on that one. Holy Water, my favourite track on here. One of my favourite tracks by Spooky Tooth. I think it's Gary's keyboard work on this that really is the top drawer stuff. Excellent track. Then we get Wildfire. The great guitars here from Mick. Bryson's drumming's pretty good. It's a very solid track. Self-Seeking Mac, another fantastic track. The piano from Gary is wonderful. It sort of adds to it, and it's one of my favourite tunes on this album. Times have changed. Just a great track. Some great keyboards again from Gary. Very, very prominent. And then we get Moira. That's the last track. Love the start of this. That lovely organ sound. Some nice vocals, both from Gary and Mike, they sort of share the thing. Solid track to end the album. Solid album. Not a bad track on this. Great comeback from Spooky Tooth. You know, Mick Jones is now on the guitars, so yeah, it's a pretty good album. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 7.6. Okay, coming in at number 5. This is The Last Puff, and it's the only album that's billed as Spooky Tooth featuring Mike Harrison. And this was the album released following the departure of Gary himself. So we've got Luther Grosvenor on guitar, Mike Harrison on vocals, Henry McCulloch on guitar, Chris Stanion on piano now, Alan Spencer on the bass, and Mike Kelly on the drums. Now this opens up with a cover version of the Beatles' I Am the Walrus. Very good interpretation of this Beatles crunch. I quite like it actually. It's a little bit more chilled out than the Beatles version, but it's thing. Then we get my favourite track on this album, The Wrong Time, actually written by Gary Wright before he left. I love Luther's guitar on this, absolutely fantastic. Just got that real groove, that spooky tooth groove. Really good track. Then we have a track called Something to Say, written by Joe Cocker. Not one of my favourites on here. I've heard Joe Cocker do this, and it's a little bit better. Then we get No Be There At All, written by Mike Post. Good track, a little bit different. The original was done by Bobby Doyle, but it's not a bad version actually. A little bit different. Downriver, yet another cover song by David Ackles. It's very similar to the original, and they do a pretty good version of it, to be quite honest. Then we have a track from Elton John off the Tumbleweed Connection, and it's Son of Your Father. Not as good as Elton's, but it's a very good version. Then we have The Last Puff, some lovely piano work here from Chris. Absolutely great, bluesy, moving sort of track. While there are a few covers on this album, they are really good covers, and you wouldn't have thought they were covers the way that Spooky Tooth interpreted them. So it's a really good album, and I do enjoy this album actually. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. Okay, then coming in number 4, we have an album from 1974, and it was the last one until 1999. It's called The Mirror, and it was the only Spooky Tooth album to be released without contributions from Mike Harrison. And we've got, so on vocals here, we've got a chap called Mike Pato, who also plays the clavinet, electric piano and organ. Mick Jones is on the guitars. Gary Wright's on vocals and piano and clavinet and moved synthesizer. So Gary came back. Val Burke plays the bass guitar and backing and lead vocals, and Bryson Graham is on drums. First, and then I forgot to mention, we've got some zither on here by James Esquiwan. Fantasy Satisfier, some great riffs here from Mick Jones on the guitar. Mike Pato singing, not bad, good little rocker. Tomb Time Love. Now this is very Deep Purple. You've got that lovely Rich Hammond, a great bass line. That's probably why I like it, because it just sounds like a Deep Purple track. Then we have a track called Kyle. Some lovely keyboard here from Gary. It was so good to have him back in the band. A good vocal as well. I do like that track. Women in Gold comes next. Some slap bass here from Val. Yeah, a bit of slap bass. Can't go wrong with that. Little Bryson's drumming's really good. It's a real sort of funky sound, and you got some great guitar work from Mick. Super little song. Higher circles, nice little rocker. There's some absolute killer riffs here from Mick. You know, you could hear them sort of sounds that you would get with Foreigner. Absolutely killer track. Hell or High Water. Great track on here. I think the vocals from this Mike Pato were really good. One of my favourite tracks on the album. Then we get I'm Alive, a great electric piano start. I love that sound. Then the drumming from Bryson comes in. Great little track again. Great guitar work from Mick Jones on this. Really good. Then we get the self-titled track, The Mirror. I think this is the second best track on the album. Once again, it's Gary's lovely keyboard work. Very good vocal as well. Then we have The Hoofer, probably my least favourite track on here. It's certainly one of the, it's definitely got that last track on the album syndrome. I do think this album is really overlooked because obviously Mike Harrison doesn't sing on it. I think it's got some good tracks on it. It's got a more heavier sound to it. It's a really good album. Very underrated, so I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 8.5. Okay, next up is from 1973, and it is Witness. Original drummer Mike Kelly returned. Gary remained the dominant songwriter for this. And this is the one that after Mike Harrison left after this album. So on here we've got Mike Harrison, Mick Jones, Gary Wright, Chris Stewart and the return of Mike Kelly. First track on this one is called Ocean of Power. It has got a great bass line from Chris Stewart. Kelly's drums is great. Mike Kelly's drums are great. Great vocals. That's a great track. Then we have a track called Wings on My Heart. The guitar mix is really good. You got that mixture of acoustic and electric. It's a great vocal from Mike Harrison. Absolutely brilliant track. And then we got As Long As You Keep As the World Keeps Turning. Lovely track as well. Some nice harmony singing on here. It's great when you've got other members of the band that can sing and they produce these lovely harmonies. And then for my favourite track, probably one of my favourite tracks, definitely top 10 Spooky Tooth tracks. It's called Don't Ever Stray Away. Great bass line. It reminds me so much of Bad Company. It's got that feel of a Bad Company song. Probably why I like it. It's just a really good rock song from the time. Things change. We've got some lovely acoustic guitar at the beginning of this. Chris's bass line comes through. Gary's ever-present dulcet tones on the keyboards. Really strong track. All Sewn Up. Like this track. Some great riffs from Mick Jones on it. Pretty good. Dreamy Mountain. The piano work from Gary on this is terrific. I think if it hadn't got that wonderful piano line on it, I think it'd be a bit of a mediocre track actually. Sunlight of My Mind, the opening riffs from Mick, the cowbell, can't beat a bit of cowbell. Some really nice Hammond organ on this, a really strong track. And the last track is Pyramids, another of my favourite tracks by Spooky Tooth. Really strong. I love the vocal on this. Again, a very underrated album in the Spooky Tooth catalogue. Again, great tracks from top to bottom. Not a bad track on this. A great album to play. And I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9 out of 10. Okay, coming in number 2, we got a 1968 now to that debut album. And it's called, of course, It's All About. So this is the original lineup of Mike Harrison, Luca Grosvenor, Gary Wright, Greg Ridley and Mike Kelly. First track up here is Society's Child. Now this is a cover of a Janis Ian song. which was originally called Baby I've Been Thinking of You from 1965, and it's a great version. I think they really did their spin on it and made it an even better track, in my opinion. It's a good track. Then we get a track called Love Really Changed Me. Good song, very psychedelic. It's got that real 60s groove to it. Some nice guitar work there from Luther. Here I Live So Well. At the time when this came out, there were so many great bands sounding like this. We've got Procol Harum and the Moody Blues. It's a great vocal from Mike Harrison. I really like this track. Then we have a Bob Dylan song called Too Much of Nothing. Yet another Bob Dylan song that sounds better done by somebody else. Really added something to it. Really good track. Sunshine Help Me. Some rich guitar organ work here from Gary. There's some harpsichord on here as well, believe it or not. It really is a good tune. Then we turn it over to side 2 and we get It's All About a Roundabout. One of those sort of 60s pop songs that should have been a single. Some great drumming here from Mike Kelly. Very, very good. Then we have Tobacco Road. Okay. National Teens did a version of this. Quite a lot of people have covered this. I think this is a really good version. It's slowed down to a bluesy sort of feel to it. It's a moody bluesy song. And I like it. I really do like it. Okay, my favourite track on here. One of my favourite tracks of all time by Spooky Tooth. It Hurts You. So, it's very psychedelic prog. Some lovely drumming on here. There's lots of delicate touches of nice keyboard sound and guitars. Fantastic. Then we get Forget It, I Got It. One of the tracks I'm not a fan of. It's probably why it's not my number 1 album, because it's a sort of, to me, it's the clanger on here. This doesn't fit. It's a bit bitty. Yeah, I don't like that one much. Then we get Bubbles, which is the last track. It's one of these psychedelic poppy songs, and it's really good. It's so chilled back. It's laid back, you know, you're almost horizontal on this one. It's an absolutely brilliant track. This was a very good debut album. There's some absolutely killer tracks on here. There's one that's obviously I'm not keen on, and I think the version of Tobacco Road on here is absolutely brilliant. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 9.3. So my number 1, if you haven't worked it out, is the second album, Spooky 2 from 1969. It's Mike Harrison, Luther Grosvenor, Gary Wright, Greg Ridley, and Mike Kelly. First track, Waiting for the Wind. I just love this. That keyboard at the beginning, Mike's drums come in. It is another of the top 10 Spooky Tooth tracks. Well, it's so good. Feeling Bad, great track. The backing vocals are on this are really good. And Mike's percussion is fantastic on that. I've Got Enough Heartaches, absolutely brilliant. The backing singers who are not credited on this, it's a shame. I try to look and see who does all the backing vocals. They're very, very good. Then we get a track called Evil Woman, which is been covered by quite a few people. Originally done by Guy Darrell. Canned Heat have done a version, and Quiet Riot. Of all the 4 song versions, I think Spooky Tooth is the best. It's got some great guitar work from Luther Grosvenor, and that's why I think this is the best version of this song ever done. They really made it their own, to be quite honest. It's got more oomph than the original, and it's Canned Heat is a close second, but Quiet Riot's version is just awful. I don't like that version at all. Then we get my favourite track, and I would say this is my favourite track. Well, one of my favourite tracks. And it's Lost in My Dream. Fantastic vocal for Mike. I love Gary's keyboard in this. It's just really good. Then we get a track called That Was Only Yesterday. Very nice, gentle play song. Great vocal from Mike. I like this song. It's just so chilled out. And then we get a track called Better By You, Better Than Me. Yes, the one that Judas Priest covered. And the one that caused a little bit of controversy for poor old Judas Priest. If you remember when they had to go to court. My second favourite track by Spooky Tooth. I think it's got some of Gary's best keyboard work. Do I prefer this version to Judas Priest's? Yeah, I do. This is brilliant. Priest is good, don't get me wrong. I like the Priest version. But if you're going to put the same track against each other, this one will always win for me. And the last track on this great album is Hang Man, Hang My Shell on a Tree. Laid back. Some great harmonies again on this. It's a great track to end the album. In my opinion, I think this is one of the most underrated albums of the 1960s. It's got some great tracks on here. It's got some of my favourite Spooky Tooth tracks on. It's so diverse, soulful, heavy, psychedelic. Everything you need in a 60s album, all in one place. It's even got a bit of bluesy sound on there. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 9.5. So there we go. There's a little tribute to Gary Wright. A really good band. If you like your 60s groovy psychedelic music, this is a band for you. Okay, I'll be back a bit later with another classic album. We're looking at the best albums of the decades according to the Rolling Stones magazine. Now this is one that was at number 3, and it's Brian Ferry's These Foolish Things. Bit controversial, I think, but we'll have a look at that soon. So bye for now.